The Galactic Council chamber was built to impress and to intimidate. It floated in open space, held together by gravity fields so smooth that no one could feel them. The walls were wide arcs of dark crystal that reflected stars like frozen lights. Long platforms curved around a central hollow, where delegates from hundreds of worlds hovered, stood or rested in shapes that fit their bodies. Some breathed gas, some liquid, some light. The chamber was never silent, but it was never loud either. Every sound was controlled, measured, and filtered. Into this place came the human delegation. They were small, not in number, but in presence. 5 humans walked together across the entry bridge, their steps slow and careful. They wore simple, dark uniforms, with no metal shine and no symbols of rank. They did not carry weapons. They did not project holograms. They did not arrive with guards. Han Jusu walked at the front. He was not tall, and his shoulders were narrow, but his back was straight. His face showed little emotion, not fear and not pride. He had spent many years studying other species, and he knew that strong reactions often made things worse. Behind him walked Park Yuna, holding a thin data slate close to her chest. Her eyes moved constantly, not in panic but in focus, tracking lights, signals, and small changes in the chamber's field readings. The others followed quietly. A low tone passed through the chamber. It was the council's signal of attention. The speaker began to address them. The speaker did not have a fixed shape. It appeared as a tall, shifting figure of light and shadow, designed so no single species would feel favored or threatened. When it spoke, its voice adjusted to every ear and sensor at once. "Earth," the speaker said, "you have been granted a cultural evaluation hearing. Your allotted time is limited. You may begin." Hanjusu stepped forward until the soft boundary field stopped him. He placed one hand over the other, a human gesture of respect. "We thank the council," he said. His voice was calm, clear, and unforced. "Humanity comes not to demand status, but to share what we are." Around the chamber, reactions flickered. Some delegates leaned closer. Others shifted away. A few produced signals that Park Yuna Slate marked as mild interest, but most showed little response. The speaker inclined slightly. "You have submitted your proposal. It lists no military assets, no energy innovations, and no biological upgrades." "Clarify." Hanjusu nodded. "That is correct." A ripple of low-frequency sound passed through several platforms. It was not speech, but amusement. Park Yuna felt it before she heard it. Her slate showed rising noise patterns across multiple species bands. She did not look up, but her grip tightened. Hanjusu continued. "Humanity submits its art." The reaction was immediate. One delegate, tall and plated in gold and stone, released a sharp clicking sound. Another pulsed a band of bright color that translated as disbelief. A clustermind representative dimmed slightly, signaling confusion. Several platforms emitted short bursts of sound that the council system translated as laughter. The speaker raised one elongated arm, and the chamber settled. "Define your term," the speaker said. Hanjisu did not hesitate. "Art is how humans record meaning. It is how we share emotion, memory, and identity beyond data." The gold-plated delegate interrupted. "Meaning is inefficient." The speaker allowed the interruption. "That statement is accurate," the delegate continued. "Meaning does not increase output, survival rates, or expansion potential." Hanjisu inclined his head. "We agree that art does not serve those goals directly. It's caused more amusement." Park Yuna's slate flashed warnings, but Hanjusu lifted one finger slightly. A signal for patience. Another delegate spoke, its voice layered and metallic. "Then your submission is irrelevant. The council evaluates contributions that strengthen the collective. Humanity believes it does," Hanjusu said. The speaker turned slightly toward him. "Explain how." Hanjusu gestured gently. The air before him shimmered, and a small projection appeared. It was simple at first. Just color. Soft, uneven strokes, moving slowly. Then sound followed, low and warm, rising and falling like breath. Shapes formed and dissolved, suggesting faces, hands, skies, and oceans without fully defining them. Park Yuna watched the chamber's response metrics spike, not in interest, but in irritation. Several delegates turned away. "This is unstructured," one said. "It lacks purpose," said another. A third voice cut in, sharp and clear. "Is this entertainment?" Han Jisoo lowered his hand, and the projection faded. "It is expression," he said. "It is how humans understand themselves and each other." The gold-plated delegate emitted another clicking sound. "Self-understanding is internal. It has no value to the collective." Park Yuna could no longer stay silent. She stepped forward half a pace. "With respect," she said, "many of your civilizations collapsed before joining the Council. Our records show wars, internal fractures, and mass losses caused by failure to process identity and change." The chamber grew colder. The speaker raised its arm again. "The human delegate will limit commentary to the proposal." Park Yuna bowed her head and stepped back. Han Jisoo did not look at her, but his voice softened slightly. "Art is how we survive change," he said. "It helps us endure loss without destroying ourselves." Brief silence followed. Not respectful silence, but the kind that comes before dismissal. The speaker spoke. "The Council recognizes that humans place subjective value on emotional processing. However, this does not meet the criteria for advancement contribution." A different delegate leaned forward, its surface rippling like water. "Do humans truly believe this makes them unique?" It asked. "No," Han Jisoo replied. "We believe it makes us human." That answer triggered laughter across multiple platforms. It was controlled, but unmistakable. The gold-plated delegate spoke again. "Earth has been at the edge of extinction events, environmental collapse, and internal conflict. And you offer colors and sounds?" Han Jisoo met its gaze. "Yes." Park Yuna felt heat rise behind her eyes, but she stayed still. The speaker concluded. "The Council finds Earth's cultural submission non-essential. Humanity's request for expanded recognition is denied." A final tone sounded. The hearing was over. The boundary field dissolved. Signaling the humans to leave, as they turned back toward the entry bridge, Park Yuna glanced once more at the vast chamber. Hundreds of civilizations, each advanced beyond Earth in technology, energy, and reach. And yet, she saw no art among them. No personal symbols. No irregular patterns. Everything was smooth, optimized, and empty. On the bridge, away from the chamber's sensors, she spoke quietly. "They didn't even try to understand." Han Jisoo kept walking. "They did," he said. "They just did not value it." One of the others asked, "Does that mean we failed?" Han Jisoo stopped at the end of the bridge, where the transport waited. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the transparent hull. "No," he said. "It means they showed us exactly what the galaxy lacks." Park Yuna looked at him, surprised. He turned, his expression still calm, but his eyes alive with thought. "They measure everything," he continued, "except meaning, and anything not measured is invisible to them." The transport doors closed, sealing the humans inside as the ship pulled away. The Galactic Council chamber shrank into a distant shape of light. Inside the transport, no one spoke for a long time, far behind them. The galaxy remained unchanged, efficient, ordered, silent, and somewhere deep within human space. The question had already begun to form. What if the galaxy was not ready to see art because it had never learned how to feel? The transport ship crossed the edge of human space in silence. Stars passed like slow sparks beyond the hull, steady and distant. Inside, the lights were dimmed to rest levels, but no one slept. The meeting with the Galactic Council replayed again and again in quiet minds. Han Jisoo sat alone near the front of the ship. His hands rested on his knees, still and relaxed. He was not angry. Anger burned energy and closed thought. What he felt was focus. The galaxy had spoken clearly. It had not misunderstood humanity. It had judged humanity by its own rules. Behind him, Park Yuna worked at a console. Soft light reflected across her face as streams of data scrolled past. Council reactions, signal patterns, emotional responses translated into numbers and curves. The data confirmed what they already knew. Interest had been low. Dismissal had been high. Mockery had been present but controlled. She exhaled slowly and leaned back. They were never going to accept it. She said quietly. Han Jisu did not turn. Acceptance was not the goal. Park Yuna looked up. Then what was? He paused before answering. Observation. The ship entered jump space, and the stars stretched into pale lines. The motion felt like falling without fear. On Earth, the response was not silent. News of the council hearing spread across networks within hours. At first, the reports were careful and calm. Humanity's cultural proposal had been reviewed. It had been rejected. There was no penalty, no threat. Just dismissal. Then the commentary began. Some laughed. Others were angry. Many were confused. Why art? One broadcast host asked. Why not technology? Art doesn't feed people, another said, but in quiet spaces a different question formed. Why had humans made art at all? In a small studio overlooking a crowded street, Choi Myra stood before a wall covered in color. Her hands were stained with paint, her clothes worn and uneven. She had not watched the council hearing live, but she felt it anyway. She always felt these things. She turned down the volume of a nearby screen and stared at the shapes she had painted days before. They felt incomplete now. She opened a message window and typed 3 words. They don't see. Across the world, similar thoughts appeared. In research centers, labs, homes, and cafes, people talked. Not loudly. Not in protests. In long, careful conversations at a university complex near the sea. Lee Doyen listened as a group of scientists and artists argued in a circular room filled with whiteboards and soft light. He stood apart, arms folded, eyes half closed. He had worked with neural interfaces for years, building systems that allowed humans to share sensory data directly. Taste, touch, memory fragments. All regulated. All controlled. Art had never been part of his work until now. They can't read our emotions, one scientist said. Their brains aren't wired that way. Then why bother? Another asked. Lee Doyon opened his eyes. That's not true, he said. The room quieted. They can feel, he continued. They just don't name it the way we do. Their systems still respond to pattern, change, contrast. That's universal. An artist across from him frowned. But they laughed at us. Yes, Lee Doyon said. Because we showed them a flat image and sound. That's like showing a shadow of a fire and expecting warmth. The words hung in the air. What are you saying? Someone asked. Lee Doyon walked to the board and drew a simple shape. A human outline. Then beside it, a different form, abstract and branching. Art is not the problem, he said. Translation is... The discussion did not end that day. It grew. Within weeks, small teams formed. Not official at first. No grand funding. Just people who felt the same pull. Artists who understood emotion. Engineers who understood systems. Historians who understood loss. They shared one belief. Art was not decoration. It was survival, Han. Jisoo returned to Earth and stepped into a world already changing. Meetings were waiting. Proposals, arguments. He attended few of them instead. He visited quiet places, museums, empty theaters. Old neighborhoods where murals peeled under sun and rain. He watched people without speaking. How they reacted to music in the street. How children drew shapes in dust. How elders touched old photos. One evening, he met Park Yuna on a balcony overlooking the city. They think we should move on, she said. Focus on trade and defense. And you? He asked. She hesitated. I think the galaxy made a mistake. He smiled faintly. Mistakes are openings. In a sealed lab beneath the university complex, Lee Doyon stood before a prototype frame. It looked unfinished. Cables ran like roots across the floor. A circular interface hovered at chest height, humming softly. "This won't just show art," he explained to a small group. "It will let them experience it. Not through human senses, but through adaptive input. Their own systems will interpret it." Choi Mira stepped closer. "You're saying they won't just see my work? I'll feel the change it creates," Lee Doyan said. She swallowed. "That's dangerous." "Yes," he agreed. Silence followed. Danger did not stop them. Months passed. The project gained a name only when it needed one. Project Aurora. Not for beauty. For light after darkness, art was broken apart and rebuilt. Paint became motion. Music became pressure and rhythm. Stories became paths of memory and choice. Everything was tested, adjusted, tested again. Failures were common. One test caused a feedback loop that left a volunteer disoriented for hours. Another produced nothing at all, flat, empty. But sometimes, something worked. A single color shift caused a subject to cry without knowing why. Low vibration brought calm to a mind under stress. Choi Mira watched one such test from behind glass. Her hands shook. "It's alive," she whispered. Lee Doyan nodded. "It always was. We just didn't know how to let it speak." Far away, beyond Earth, the galaxy continued as before. Trade routes opened and closed. Conflicts rose and cooled. The Galactic Council met, discussed, and moved on. Earth became a minor note again. A small world with strange priorities. They did not notice the quiet preparations. Han, Jisoo, stood before a small assembly one final time. "No cameras. No broadcasts. We will not ask permission," he said. "We will not force understanding. We will offer it. And if they reject it again," someone asked. He met their eyes. "Then, at least they will know what they are rejecting." The first transmission unit was completed in silence. No ceremony. No announcement. Park Yuna watched the final checks scroll past. "Once this is released," she said, "we can't control who receives it." Han Jisoo nodded. Art was never meant to be controlled. The launch window opened. A small, unarmed probe drifted toward neutral space, carrying no weapon, no demand. No message written in words, only experience, as it crossed the boundary. No alarm sounded. The galaxy did not yet know it was about to feel something new and unearthed. For the first time since the Council's laughter, humanity did not feel dismissed. They felt ready. The probe drifted through neutral space, without a signal, flag, or claim mark. It was small, no larger than a cargo pod used by minor traders. Its surface was smooth and dark, built to avoid attention. Inside, it carried no explosives, no defense systems, and no engines meant for escape. It carried only one thing, the experience. For several days, nothing happened. Park Yuna watched the tracking display from a quiet room on Earth. The probe's position updated every few minutes. No intercepts. No scans strong enough to trigger alarms. Just empty space and distant stars. "Maybe no one will notice," she said. Han Jisoo stood beside her, hands behind his back. "Someone always notices," he replied. They were right. The first ship to detect the probe belonged to a small trade species that traveled slowly between systems. Their vessels relied on wide-range sensory sweeps rather than focused scans. The probe appeared as an anomaly, not dangerous. Just strange. The captain ordered it brought aboard. When the probe was powered, it did not transmit language or data. It responded by opening a channel directly into the ship's sensory network. There was no warning color flowed where none had existed. The crew froze. It was not vision as they understood it. It was pressure and warmth, movement without direction. A rising pattern that felt like standing at the edge of something vast and kind. Then came sound, not through ears, but through structure. Slow pulses that matched internal rhythms. One crew member collapsed. Overwhelmed, another began to tremble. The captain did not order the system shut down. Instead, the captain wept. The experience lasted only moments, but when it ended, The ship was silent. Crew members stared at one another, unsure how to speak. Their species had words for efficiency, trade, and survival. They had no word for what had just passed through them. They recorded everything within hours. Fragments of the data reached other ships. Curiosity spread faster than fear. A research vessel intercepted the probe next. Then a patrol ship. Then a long-range explorer. Each encounter was different. The experience adapted, shifting its form to match the receivers. Always gentle. Always deep. Some species felt memories they did not know. They carried, some felt loss without cause. Some felt connection for the first time. On Earth, Li Doyan monitored the feedback with shaking hands. "It's working," he whispered. Choi Myra stood behind him, her arms wrapped around herself. Tears ran freely down her face. "They're feeling it," she said. "They're really feeling it." Not all reactions were calm. One species shut down the transmission immediately, labeling it a cognitive hazard. Another declared it a foreign influence and sealed the probe away. A third attempted to break it apart, only to find the internal systems locked beyond force. But even among those, something changed. Dream patterns shifted. Decision delays increased. Individuals paused before acting. The Galactic Council noticed the disruption within days. Emergency. Reports arrived from multiple regions. Ships delayed. Crews distressed. Trade schedules disrupted not by damage but by hesitation. The council convened. This time, the chamber was not filled with amusement. The anomaly originates. From Earth space, the speaker announced, "A murmur passed through the platforms. They released it without approval," said one. "Delegate. It violates protocol," said another. The gold-plated delegate emitted a sharp sound. "It is contamination." The speaker raised its arm. Assessment first. Reports were displayed across the chamber. Translated reactions. Biological readings. Neural fluctuations. "It causes no physical harm," a delegate noted. "No system damage," another added. "Yet productivity decreases," the gold-plated delegate said. "Focus is disrupted." A quieter voice spoke from a shadowed platform. "So was war, once." Silence followed. The council authorized observation only. No retaliation. No contact. They underestimated curiosity. Across the galaxy, individuals began seeking the experience. Not through orders or trade, but through stories. Word spread in ways the council could not track. On a mining station, workers gathered after shifts, replaying fragments of the transmission. On a medical vessel, healers noticed recovery times improving after exposure. On a frontier world, two rival groups paused a long-standing conflict to share the experience together. They did not understand it. They did not need to, Han. Jisu watched the reports from Earth with quiet attention. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. "They're still afraid," Park Yuna said. "Yes," he replied. "Fear comes before change." The council issued a formal request. Earth was to explain itself. This time, the message was not dismissive. It was careful. Li Doyan read it twice. "They want control," he said. "They always do," Han Jusu answered. Choi Mira looked at the projection of the probe drifting between stars. "If they control it, it stops being art." 8. Han Jusu nodded. "Which is why we won't give them control." Earth's response was simple. They shared the design, not the codes, not the limits. Only the idea, art as experience, art. As shared feeling, the council was unsettled. They could not ban it without acknowledging its impact. They could not weaponize it without breaking it. 4. The first time in its long history. The council faced something it could not measure cleanly. On a distant world, a child from a species without art traced shapes in dust for the first time after exposure. On another, a hive mind paused, sensing individuality ripple through its structure. Small changes, quiet changes. On Earth, Choimira returned to her studio. She picked up a brush and added a single line to her unfinished. While it felt complete, the galaxy had not been painted yet, but the first color had touched it, and it would never be. Unseen, the spread could no longer be called accidental. The probe had been copied, not perfectly and not fully, but enough. Alien engineers, traders, and researchers rebuilt fragments of the system using what they understood. They did not recreate the human design. They created their own versions, shaped by their minds and limits. Each one was different. Each one carried a piece of the experience. The galaxy began to feel uneven. On a station near a binary star, a transport delay stretched from hours into days, not because of damage or threat, but because crews refused to leave. They sat together in shared chambers, replaying fragments of human expression. No one ordered them to stop. No one ordered them to continue. They chose to stay. On a world governed by strict cycles and roles, a worker failed to return to their assigned post. When questioned, the worker could not explain why, only that something inside them had shifted. The governing system logged the failure as an error. It did not know how to respond. The council chambers filled again, this time. The speaker's form flickered more often than usual. "The spread is accelerating," the speaker said. A delegate projected a cluster of data. "Cultural instability is rising. Productivity loss is measurable." The gold-plated delegate leaned forward. "Earth has released a disruptive influence." "This was not declared," a softer voice replied. "Nor was it violent. It alters behavior," the gold-plated delegate said. "That is enough." The council debated response options: sanctions, isolation, signal suppression. None were clean. Suppressing the experience required, blocking vast bands of neutral space. Trade would suffer. Sanctions would draw attention. Isolation would admit fear. Fear was not something the council liked to display on Earth. Han Jisoo listened to the updates in silence. "They're cornered," Park Yuna said. "They want us to take responsibility." "We already have," Han Jisoo replied. "We just won't take control." Lee Doyon paced the lab floor. "Some of these reactions are stronger than we predicted," he said. "We built safety limits, but other versions don't have them." Choimira looked up from a projection of alien-modified art. "Art has never been safe," she said quietly. He stopped pacing. Across the galaxy, something unprecedented happened. A ceasefire. Two rival fleets met at a contested border. Weapons powered down. No treaty was signed. No demands exchanged. Commanders shared a fragment of the experience. Passed from ship to ship. For several hours. Nothing happened. Then the fleets separated. The conflict did not end forever, but it paused. The council could not ignore that. Reports showed similar patterns. Violence delays. Reduced aggression. Increased hesitation before irreversible. Actions, it weakens resolve. The gold-plated delegate said. "It introduces." Reflection, another answered. The difference mattered. The council issued a summons this time. It was not optional. Hanjisu returned to the chamber alone. He wore the same simple uniform. He carried no device, no projection. When he stepped onto the platform, the chamber quieted. Not with mockery, with caution. "You have altered the balance," the speaker said. Hanjisu nodded. "Yes, explain your intent." "Our intent was always the same," he replied. "To share who we are," the gold-plated delegate interrupted. "You have interfered in internal processes." Hanjisu met its gaze. "So did language. So did trade. So did fire." Silence followed. "You call this art?" the speaker said. "We call it uncontrolled influence." Hanjisu spread his hands slightly. "Influence without force is choice." The council did not like that answer. "Can you stop it?" a delegate asked. "Yes," Hanjisu said. The chamber leaned closer. "But we will not," he continued, "because it no longer belongs to us." A ripple of unease passed through the platforms. "You released something you cannot contain," the speaker said. Hanjisu's voice remained calm. So did you when you built this council. The comparison landed hard. The council recessed without resolution, outside official channels. The experience continued to spread. A hive-mind civilization reported internal fractures. Individuals began identifying themselves separately, not as a threat, but as a question. A machine-led society adjusted its decision algorithms after repeated exposure to human art introduced unpredictable variables. They call it noise, one report stated. But the noise produces better outcomes. On Earth, Choi Mira watched children interact with early human versions of the experience. They laughed. They cried. They asked questions no system could answer for them. This is what they're afraid of, she said. Park Yuna nodded. Loss of certainty. The council attempted one final measure. They released a controlled countersignal, clean, ordered, emotionally neutral. It failed. Those exposed described it as empty. Some felt discomfort. Others felt nothing at all. The contrast made the human experience stronger. Within the council, division formed. Some delegates argued for acceptance, others demanded containment, for the first time in centuries. Votes did not align. Han Jisoo returned to Earth, knowing the outcome was no longer his to decide. The galaxy was learning something the council had. Forgotten efficiency without meaning was not. Stability and meaning, once felt, could not be erased. Far from Earth, on a quiet station, orbiting a dying star, an alien artist newly named etched patterns into metal for no reason. Other than that, it felt right. The galaxy had begun to paint itself. Humanity had only shown it how to start. The galaxy no longer reacted as one system. It reacted as many minds. The changes were not loud. There were no great announcements or sudden collapses. Instead, small delays appeared everywhere. Decisions took longer. Orders were questioned. Systems paused where they once moved without thought. The council called this instability. Others began to call it awareness. On a densely populated trade world, a planning corps halted a major expansion project. Its calculations showed profit and efficiency gains as expected. But a new variable recently introduced reduced its confidence. The variable had no clear label. Only a note. Outcome lacks meaning. The project was postponed. On a medical station far from any capital, healers noticed something else. Patients exposed to the experience recovered more steadily. Not faster, but better. Fewer relapses. Fewer violent responses to pain. No one knew how to chart that. The council chamber filled again. But this time many platforms showed signs of internal conflict. Some delegates shimmered unevenly. Others held their shapes too rigidly as if resisting change. The influence continues to spread, the speaker said. Containment has failed. The gold-plated delegate spoke with sharper tones than before. Then Earth must be sanctioned, another delegate replied. For what crime? Sharing experience? For disruption, the gold-plated one answered. A quieter delegate responded. Or for reminding us we are more than systems. The argument did not resolve. For the first time in council history, a formal split occurred. A minority bloc refused to support sanctions. The vote stalled. On Earth, Han Jisoo watched the session end without decision. He felt no triumph. They're fracturing, Park Yuna said. Yes, he replied, because they're feeling. Lee Doyon stood nearby, reading incoming reports. Some species are asking for guidance, he said. They want to understand what's happening to them. Han Jisoo shook his head. We cannot teach them how to feel, only how to listen. Humanity sent no instructions. They sent artists, not envoys. Not rulers. People who worked with shape, sound, movement, and silence. They traveled openly, unarmed, invited by worlds that once would have laughed them away. Choi Mira stepped onto an alien station for the first time. The walls were smooth and pale, without decoration. The inhabitants watched her closely, not hostile. But uncertain, she unpacked her tools. She painted, not images of Earth, but patterns that responded to the station's light cycles and gravity shifts. The colors moved slowly, breathing with the environment. The inhabitants returned. Day after day, they did not ask what it meant. They asked how it felt. On another world, a human musician played tones matched to alien hearing ranges. The sounds caused structures to vibrate softly. The world listened. These were not demonstrations. They were conversations. The council observed these exchanges with growing concern. They are embedding themselves, the gold-plated delegate said. They are being invited, another replied. The difference mattered. A report arrived from a hive mind. Civilization. Individual thought clusters had stabilized. Not into chaos, into harmony. The hive reported reduced internal strain and increased adaptive problem-solving. They are no longer one voice, the report stated, but they are not many enemies. The council fell silent. This result contradicted centuries of belief. The speaker addressed the chamber. Earth has altered the definition of strength. The words unsettled many. Strength had always meant expansion, control. Survival now, it included restraint, reflection, meaning a final delegation request was sent to Earth, not a demand, an invitation. Han Jisu accepted. When he returned to the council chamber, he was not alone. Representatives from multiple species accompanied him, not as allies, but as witnesses. You claim no ownership, the speaker said. That is correct. Han Jisu replied. You refuse control, said another delegate. Yes. The gold-plated delegate spoke slowly now. Then what does humanity seek? Han Jisu looked around the chamber. At the endless forms, the perfect symmetry, the quiet emptiness between words. We seek coexistence, he said, not as units. As stories? Some delegates recoiled. Others leaned closer. The speaker paused for a long moment. The council cannot measure stories. Anjisu nodded. That is why you fear them. The chamber did not erupt. It reflected outside the council. Change continued. A long-standing war ended, not with surrender, but exhaustion. The sides met and shared experiences. They did not forgive. They understood. Understanding was enough. On Earth, children learned about alien cultures, not through data files, but through shared expression programs. They laughed at strange patterns. They cried at unfamiliar grief. Humanity was changing too. They were no longer alone in their depth. The council adjourned without punishment, without approval, without certainty for the first time. The galaxy moved forward without a clear plan, and for the first time, it felt like progress. The galaxy did not collapse. That surprised many. For generations, the Galactic Council had believed that strong order was the only thing keeping civilization stable. Every rule, every system, every protocol had been designed to remove uncertainty. Feeling had been classified as noise. Meaning had been labeled a risk. Now meaning was everywhere, and the stars still burned. Trade continued, though more slowly. Ships still traveled, though captains sometimes changed course for reasons they could not fully explain. Decisions were made, but not always by the fastest path. They were made by the right one. The council gathered again. But this time the chamber looked different. Not in structure, but in presence. Several platforms displayed marks that had not existed before. Patterns, colors, personal symbols chosen by delegates. Themselves, no one commented on it. The speaker addressed the chamber. We must redefine our function. That single sentence carried weight. A delegate responded, the council exists to preserve stability. Yes, the speaker replied, but stability is no longer what it was. Data projections filled the air. Charts showed reduced conflict escalation, improved long-term outcomes, fewer catastrophic failures. None of it followed old models. The variable persists, said one analyst delegate. Meaning-based behavior cannot be isolated. Another replied, nor should it be. The gold-plated delegate had not spoken yet. When it did, the tone was subdued. Earth has changed us. No one argued. On Earth, humanity felt the shift as well. Messages arrived daily, invitations, requests for presents. Not authority. Park Yuna stood in a newly built coordination hall, watching artists prepare for departure to distant worlds. Painters, musicians, storytellers, dancers, ordinary people carrying no symbols of power were becoming a bridge, she said. Han Jisu stood beside her. We always were. Li Doyan oversaw the creation of the Galactic Archive of Expression. It was not a vault. It did not store finished works. It stored processes, ways of translating emotion across minds that did not share biology. It has to stay open, he said to his team. If it becomes fixed, it dies. Choi Mira contributed her work without ownership. Her patterns were adapted, changed, and rebuilt by alien artists. She watched versions of her original idea return to her in forms she never imagined. Instead of pride, she felt gratitude. The council issued a historic resolution. Art was recognized as a civilizational force, not a luxury, not entertainment, a force. The announcement was brief, almost hesitant. Many noticed what it did not include. No restrictions, no ownership, no control clauses. The galaxy responded with relief. On a former battlefield, a monument was built, not to victory, but to pause. Visitors stood before it and shared experiences of loss from both sides. On a machine world, a core system introduced a new routine. It simulated uncertainty, then allowed itself to choose without optimization. The system recorded better outcomes. The council no longer dismissed Earth. It studied it, but Earth did not lead it. Listened, Han Jisu declined formal leadership roles. If we stand above, he said, we stop being heard. Instead, humans became present everywhere. In small numbers, quietly, they did not bring answers. They brought space for questions. A delegate approached Han Jisu after a council session. Its form shimmered unevenly. We feel unbalanced, it said. Han Jisu nodded. So did we once. Does it end? The delegate asked. No, he replied. But it becomes familiar. The delegate considered this. Across the galaxy, new words formed in old languages. Terms for longing, for shared silence, for beauty without function. These words changed how people spoke, which changed how they thought, which changed what they built. The council chamber was quieter now, but not empty. For the first time, it felt alive, and humanity understood something important. They had not painted the galaxy alone. They had only taught it how to hold a brush. The galaxy learned how to remember. That was the change no system had predicted. Civilizations had always recorded data. Archives were vast. Records were precise. Nothing was truly lost, yet nothing was truly held either. Information existed, but it did not stay alive. Now memory had weight. On a quiet world far from major routes, alien elder guided younger ones through a shared experience left behind by ancestors. Not instructions, not laws, moments. Fear during first contact, hope during survival, grief when a star failed. The young ones listened, and they understood. The Galactic Council chamber was full, but no longer tense. The endless need to control had softened. Delegates spoke more slowly. They listened longer. Silence was no longer treated as absence. The speaker addressed the chamber. One final time in its old role, the council was created to prevent collapse, it said. But collapse is not the only failure. The chamber waited. A life without meaning is also an ending. No one objected. On Earth, Han Jisu walked through a small gallery that displayed no famous works, only shared pieces. Art created by humans and non-humans together. Some pieces changed when observed. Others remained still, waiting. Park Yuna joined him. The council vote is complete, she said. He stopped, and They dissolved the old authority structure, she replied. They replaced it with a forum. No enforcement power. Only coordination. Han Jisu nodded. That was inevitable, was it? She asked. Yes, he said. Once they learned to feel time instead of race against it, across the galaxy, the Council's former power centers adjusted. Some resisted. Some failed. Most adapted, without a single voice commanding them. Civilizations had to listen to themselves. Some made mistakes, but they learned. Li Doyan stood before the completed galactic archive of expression. It no longer had a center. Access points existed everywhere. No species controlled it. No one could delete it. It's not perfect, someone said. He smiled. Neither are we. Choi Myra returned to her original studio on Earth. The wall she had once painted was now covered by layers from visitors. Across species, she did not try to preserve the first image. She let it change. One evening, a message arrived from a world she had never visited. They had created something new they wanted to show her. Galaxy did not become peaceful. Conflict still existed. Loss still happened. But when it did, civilizations no longer rushed to erase the pain. They processed it. They shared it. They grew a child on a distant station, asked their parent why the stars mattered. The parent did not give a scientific answer. They shared a memory. That was enough. The Galactic Council chamber remained, but it was no longer the center of everything. It became a place of meeting, not judgment. Delegates came to exchange understanding, not authority. Earth held no throne. Humanity claimed no title. Yet everywhere traces of their influence remained. In pauses before action. In stories shared instead of orders. In art created without reason beyond expression, Han Jisu stood beneath a night sky on Earth, watching unfamiliar constellations made by alien ships passing peacefully through human space. We didn't conquer anything, Park Yuna said beside him. No, he replied. We listened, and the galaxy listened back. Far beyond Earth, in systems humanity would never reach, beings felt something they could not name. A sense of connection to others they would never meet. A quiet understanding that existence was more than function. That understanding endured. Long after empires shifted, long after councils rose and fell, the galaxy remembered the species that arrived with nothing to offer but meaning, and in that meaning, everything changed.